I'd like to open up with an Egyptian proverb. Once you drink from the Nile, you are destined to return. Despite being a wild and mildly dangerous place, Egypt manages to bring me back time and time again. At first, I had no clue why. I was not entertained by babysitting turbulent children or running away from explosions. Recently, however, I had a vacation experience that showed me why Egypt is not just any other place. Now, to give you some background, my grandparents in Egypt own a large house that six families come to visit during the summer. There are a total of 13 adults and 12 boisterous children. Being the eldest child there, it was my informal duty to prevent the children from any quote unquote clear and present danger. I was that hero that they needed but didn't deserve. When I was waking up on a particular morning in the city Mansoura, I headed downstairs to find my cousins running around the house like the Neanderthals they are. They were not trying to kill each other, break expensive things, or make deafening screams, so I just ignored it. After the children stopped running around the house like rabid dogs, they decided that they wanted to stop by the local shop to get some candy. I only agreed because that shop had these out of this world Oreo ice cream bars that I'd been trying to get my hands on, but alas, no good comes without hardships and a little bit of luck. To get to the store, we had to cross three roads in our path. We couldn't use the cars since of the adults were out using them doing God knows what. I took my uncle, who was the only adult there, and the two most behaved children with me to go to the shop. Now, how many of you have played the mobile game called Crossy Road? In this game, you are a chicken and you have to get to the other side of the road. The road, however, continuously has cars passing by and you have to get to the other side of the road without becoming roadkill. Crossing a road in Egypt is very much like this due to the lack of traffic regulation in Mansoura, the city we were visiting. Once we miraculously returned alive, the adults are back with the car and ready to take us to lunch. Since our family is so big, we split into four cars. Now, there's a picture of the car I was in. Unfortunately, I was trapped in the car with six insects. Their names are Selma, Layla, and Yusuf. The other three were literal mosquitoes. You can't see it in the picture, but I have six mosquito bites in my arm. Fun stuff! After 2 hours of driving at 80 miles per hour with no clearly established roads or seatbelts, we finally reached the restaurant. After waiting 25 minutes for the restaurant staff to find a table for 23 people, we gathered around the table. Everything was going normally until I decided to go to the bathroom. On my way to the bathroom, I heard a loud explosion. I did what I thought a normal person would do and ran away, but to my bewilderment, I saw everyone else run towards the explosion. At the time, this helped to reinforce that sense of disconnection I felt with the Egyptians. I began to wonder if I had anything in common with them. I returned to my table looking a little surprised, and my uncle-in-law smiled at me, saying that this was quote unquote just another day in Egypt, without even thinking it important enough to tell me what caused the explosion. We quickly ate our food and then just left. Our next stop was the museum. It was here that I started to connect to Egyptian culture. The thing that stood out the most to me was the mathematical genius of the pyramids. If you take a look at this mathematical representation of the elevation of the pyramids, you will see that the mathematical quantities pi, phi, and this e, which is Euler's constant, were all used with a 99.9% accuracy. Let's look more specifically at the mathematical quantity phi. Phi is an interesting number since the square of phi equals phi plus 1, as you can see in this equation. If we take this equation and use the Pythagorean theorem, we create a right triangle with the sides square root of phi, 1, and phi. If we take two of these triangles together, we have a base length of 2, which is 1 plus 1 as you add the bases together as you combine the triangles. And you have a height of the square root of phi, which is 1.272. The height to base ratio of this Pythagorean triangle is 0.636. Now, the Great Pyramids have a base length of 755.9 feet and a height of 480.6 feet, which results in that same height to base ratio of 0.636. Thus, this indicates that the phi right triangle was the one used by the Egyptians with remarkable accuracy. We learned about many more miracles ranging from the transport of thousands of heavy blocks per day to the cutting of hard metal with only copper tools. I began to form connections with my ancestors due to my love for math, but this still wasn't enough to keep bringing me back to Egypt. On the car ride home, my uncle told me about his younger days when he was a young, reckless driver. He told me about a specific crash he got into. Soon after the crash, the victim of the accident got out of the car, and instead of yelling at my uncle, the person went to go see if my uncle was okay. I, however, was too distracted with a mosquito to mentally process what he had just told me. It wasn't until I sat down in the bathroom of our Egypt home that I finally realized what made Egypt special: kindness. Despite living through harsh conditions, the Egyptian people show kindness towards each other. That's what my uncle was talking about. In the restaurant, the people ran towards the explosion not because they were idiots, but because they wanted to make sure that no one was hurt. This kindness transcended normal human interactions. It was powerful enough to connect everyone in Egypt, even strangers. My epiphany, however, was soon interrupted by a loud noise. I realized that the kids were left alone, and quickly went to go see what happened. I turned around the corner to find a glass door broken, an expensive plate smashed, and two kids crying on the ground. But what I also saw was the kids being tended to by the adults. And the adults weren't angry. They were more concerned about the kids than the broken things. For the first time, I could see beyond the chaos and into kindness. For the first time, I realized what it was that kept bringing me back to this place time and time again. Now then, before I take my leave, I'd like to show you what I had to deal with for 3 weeks with some funny clips of my cousins being stupid.
What?